Hey, what's up, man? Hello. How you doing? Just taking a break from watching some Wukong, because it seems like everybody that's playing it is having tech issues. It actually looks pretty decent. I could probably run it just fine, but kind of wait and see. I was surprised I had like pretty much no problems running FF16. I don't know, that's kind of coming out at an inopportune time for me, so I don't know if I'll be playing that at launch. We'll see. Yeah, I'm off today. I felt very tired today, so I kind of didn't really want to deal with Scott today. Scott's been fine the past couple nights, but I don't know. It's always a real crapshoot working over there, because he definitely has his moments. You guys heard a little bit of that last time I was over there. I mean, that just happens with every big game. It's always a bunch of controversy that makes no sense. That's how it always is. It's best to just not pay attention to that stuff. If you like the game, try it out. If you don't have the money or the power to play it, then watch somebody who does. It's that simple, really. I don't know why people care so much about what journalists think. I mean, on one hand, I think people complain about journalists too much, because gamers don't think about it from the lens of somebody who's doing it for an actual job, and not like me, you know, where I make a very small amount of income on this. My profit margin is like non-existent, but like even I, as somebody who doesn't make much money doing this, as we all know, I've had times where I've had stuff, you know, review keys, and I'm just like, I just don't have time to play this. I don't have time to give it the proper attention that the game deserves. You know, I've been asked to cover stuff, and it's just like, you know, I just don't have time for this right now. So imagine doing that when, you know, it's your actual 9-to-5 job. And these games are getting longer and longer and more padded. I do think people are a little bit too harsh on journalists, even though I do agree most of the time they suck at games, and their opinions on gameplay should not be taken seriously. But, at the same time, gamers are incapable of thinking about it from the lens of, you know, somebody who's actually doing it for, you know, full-time job. I mean, you also get, like, review keys for stuff you don't like playing, which is also a really big source of all the reviews that get memed on. You know, this person might like turn-based RPGs, and then they get, like, you know, Neo 2 or something. The review's not going to be kind. It's not their kind of game. You know, if I got sponsored to play a visual novel, I would be ripping on it the whole time. Because it's not my kind of game. A lot of people also don't understand that, like, game journalism is losing its relevancy, and they do stuff to rile up gamers and piss off the internet, specifically to get views. And a lot of people don't realize that too. It's like, you guys lift up the stupid takes and stuff that they have just to get clicks. That's perpetuating the problem. Just ignore them. You can find a decent, honest content creator for literally any kind of game. Muso games, visual novels, turn-based RPGs, racing games, and whatever you can think of. Like, just go value their opinion. Because most of them are probably not making much more than I am. They're not really in a position to lie to their viewer base. It's not hard. I don't know, it just bothers me. Like, you guys just repost these same obvious rage bait articles over and over and over. I'm like, that's why they keep doing it, because it gives them attention. And they're losing their relevancies. That's like the main way that they get attention, is pissing people off like that. That's the only reason. I don't know, man. You just gotta think about it from, like, the lens of a bully. A bully wants a reaction, they want attention. If you don't give it to them, they go away. But, like, somehow when people grow up and they get on the internet, they don't remember that anymore. Like, this is stuff you're taught when you're a child. If you don't give them a reaction, they go away. The game itself seems decent. I'm not really sold on the combat or the technical stability. Mostly. It looks like something I would enjoy playing, but I do not have the money at the moment because I've spent an insane amount on the channel this month, like over $200. I don't have a lot of faith I could finish that game before Gundam came out. I saw the thing about the conditions for streaming it. I don't know if that's true, but I can speak from experience playing other stuff. There definitely are conditions when you get a review key, and it depends. It depends on the publisher. Some of them make no sense, like you can't show the ending to the game. Like, I got the review key for Neo 2, and you guys know Neo 2 was a late port, right? That game came out on PC a year after PS4. So, you know, if you wanted to see the ending, there's nothing stopping you. But when I got that review key, I got a condition that I had to follow where I could not show the ending. Couldn't show the ending of the DLC. It's like, yeah, it's stupid, it makes no sense, but those are the rules that they give you. They're giving you a game for free. I mean, I don't really think it's that out of the ordinary. I mean, the rage bait is mostly the whole diversity thing, which my stance on that is diversity is good when it doesn't feel forced, but the problem is it often feels forced. And as somebody who's, you know, dark-skinned, I feel like I have some say on this, because I'm one of the groups that they're trying to represent. The problem is two things. First is that it's always very forced, for the most part. You know, they have a tendency to do stuff like they make the characters, like, perfect and things like that, or... They just don't feel like they really fit. And that's kind of the problem that I have with it. I feel like diversity has gotten worse since Power Rangers. Power Rangers was actually, like, really good at doing diverse stuff and not making it forced. I mean, didn't they win? I think they won a award for a Dino Fury for best episode or something, showing diversity. Like, Power Rangers has always done it right, but then, like, when video games try to do it, there definitely is a problem where, like, they're doing it to get funding. But I feel like that's also just a problem of how fucking expensive it is to make games now. But yeah, people complain about that too much as well. It's like, if you don't like it, then don't buy it. The Wukong controversy just doesn't make any sense because people are complaining about diversity. It's like, first off, it's a game set in ancient China. Like, that would be the epitome of forced diversity if there were other kinds of people there. For the time period it's in, and then also, how many big-name games are set in ancient China? Like, barely any. I think that's diverse enough, personally. This doesn't make any sense. You put somebody from, like, Brooklyn in the Wukong game, that would definitely be the epitome of forced diversity. There's a time and place for it. I mean, it's the same thing as everything else. People were offended about some other, like, Asian-style games, and it's like, you're getting outraged for those people, for that group. You don't know if they actually, care or not. On one hand, it's nice that people are actually thinking of, other groups besides themselves, but, like, at the same time, do you even know if they're offended? Like, don't speak for them. It's always my take. It happens a lot in the black community as well. People will be like, oh, this is too stereotypical. It's like, do you know if those people are offended? Because if they're not, then there's no reason to get upset. Like, you should be able to speak about your own experience, but, like, don't assume that people are offended by something just because they're part of that group of people. It's not hard. But yeah, it all just goes back to, being smart enough to not fall for that obvious rage bait. Clickbait and rage bait is such a big problem right now. And unless people stop reacting to it, it's not going to go away. I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand that. Like, you guys keep quote retweeting these obvious rage bait articles and you wonder why they keep happening. Like, that's why. It's because they're desperate for clicks. That's all it is. It's desperation. It's pathetic, honestly. You need viewership that much that you have to stir up things that don't exist and get people riled up just to get people to click on it. It always happens every time, like, a hard game comes out as well, like a Souls game or something. Some journalist will say it's a bad game. I'm like, why do you care? They're not the core audience. Their opinion doesn't matter. You've got literal thousands of Soul and difficult game content creators that have a much more informed opinion. Like, why don't you watch them? give them clicks. Most of them are probably barely scraping by. It's not hard. It takes a couple minutes of your time to support somebody who's actually passionate about the subject, instead of just latching onto it because it's popular. Shit, I'm not even talking about myself. I'm talking about people that I watch. I watch a lot of high-level gameplay, and most of those guys are struggling for views too. They should have a lot more views, but because they're not catering to the algorithm and trying to piss people off for clicks, the algorithm doesn't reward them. Yeah, I wish people would support that instead. I don't know, the Wukong benchmark worked decently for me. I just don't know if it's actually a solid game. It doesn't really look like a Souls-like. Looks like, more like Wukong. You know, like, not the deepest combat, but it's also not like a Souls-like either. So not, like, insanely difficult or anything like that. I think race swapping just comes from trying to get diversity money, but then, like, not actually making a new character. Which I find really odd, because there's been characters like Miles Morales in the Spider-Man games that have been, like, very well received. And he's not a made-up character. You know, he was always like that. I don't know, man. It's not worth trying to think about too much. It's all just stupid. But a big source of it is definitely because they're trying to get money for meeting diversity goals, which I think is not the right reason why you should have diverse stuff in your game. It should be because the people who work on it, like, believe in it and stuff. Like, they race swapped Billy in the Power Rangers movie, but, like, nobody really complained because he was a good character. And technically it wasn't really a race swap because it was a reboot that had no relation to any previous incarnation of the characters. But, like, he was the best character. I don't know if you guys watched that movie. He was autistic, he was very funny, he was always treated with respect, and he ended up being, like, the main hero. Like, not once. That was, like, the one thing I liked about that movie, was that they had him in there. They had a neurodiverse black guy in the movie, and he didn't feel forced. He was actually a really good character. And at the end of the movie, you see that he becomes accepted by people because people saw what he did. I'm like, that's cool. Like, nobody complained about that, but at the same time, that movie did come out like 7 years ago, when people are way more unhinged about complaining about stuff that doesn't matter. But I thought that movie had good diversity, despite being a crappy tokusatsu movie. I'll never flack that movie for their incarnation of Billy. It's really cool. That movie sucked balls, though. I don't recommend watching it. That movie was a major disappointment. That's like the only thing I remember about it, is that they had a black character that didn't feel forced at all. He was a legit good character. He had a good story. That movie mostly just sucked because they kind of built it around it being successful, but it wasn't. So it had the same problem a lot of other movies have, where they think that they're going to get a sequel, but they don't. So they think they can put like a lot of lore into it, and it's like, well, if you only got one movie, you got to cut back on the lore. That was the problem with the Power Rangers movie. It was just because it had the Power Rangers name, they were expecting it to be like mega successful, but it wasn't. So there's a lot of like build up in that movie, and the actual like action part of it is like 10 minutes. I really don't know why they made that movie that way. I think the problems with like the complete lack of action in that movie would have been better if, you know, it actually was going to get a sequel, but it wasn't like a Lord of the Rings or Matrix style thing where they like already had the next one greenlit. It's a pretty crappy action movie, honestly. I was pretty disappointed. I had a friend take me for free and I was still disappointed. Like, you guys have Hollywood budget, and your fight scenes are worse than the Power Rangers original seasons from like 30 years ago that had a shoestring budget. How do you screw that up? There's like no tokusatsu movies are high budget. They're all very low budget, but like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider movies and Ultraman movies that they put out like every year are like way better action movies. It's sad, honestly. How do you get to that point? You have all those resources, and you can't deliver a good action. You can't deliver any action at all. I guess that's what happens when you think something's gonna be mega popular, and then it isn't. So you have build-up for stuff that's like never going to exist. That was the exact problem with the Power Rangers movie. I think they thought that they were gonna get a lot of people in seats, but obviously, like, Power Rangers hasn't been that relevant for a long time, and then also, there's way more competition with superhero stuff than there was when Power Rangers was hot. So, that didn't help things either. Yeah, that movie angered me. I'm like, dude, the fight scenes in the original season when they had like a shoestring budget was better than anything that was in that movie. Apparently there was like a whole actual scene that they cut out. I guess they did like the choreography for it, but they didn't actually film it. You can find it on YouTube. And like, you know, if you had included that one scene, the build-up would have been a little bit better. The movie still would have had the problem of building up to stuff that doesn't exist, but would have been better at least. Shin Kamen Rider was kind of the opposite. That movie had like no plot, and it moves too fast. That movie was designed like a beat-em-up. It was a better movie than Power Rangers, but it had the opposite problem of no build-up to anything. Things kind of happen. It felt like it was supposed to be like 3 movies, but it got cut down into 1. That movie was the polar opposite of the Power Rangers reboot. It was still awesome seeing that movie in theaters, though. That was about a year ago now. But you know, the Power Rangers movie was a lot like the 90s Mario Brothers movie, where they just thought because it had the name Mario Brothers that it was going to be, like, insanely popular, but then it wasn't. You know, they have a big sequel hook at the end of that Mario Brothers movie. The one from the 90s, not the one that came out recently. Nothing came of it, obviously. That movie felt designed by committee. Like, the people who designed it didn't actually know what Mario even was. Because in my experience, I was terrified of the movie. My mom asked me if I wanted to see it, and I said no. I was terrified of the Goombas and stuff, and Bowser. You know, I was like 7 years old when that movie came out. I was very young. And I imagine my experience was probably very similar to a lot of other kids. It didn't look like Mario. It looked more like a grungy 90s movie. Which obviously backfired. Because that's exactly what happened to that movie. It was supposed to be for kids, but it was more for teenagers and young adults. So kids didn't want to go see it. I could vouch for this myself. Because I remember my mom and grandma asking me if I wanted to see it. I said no. I said I was scared by the trailer. It's like, why would you design it like that if you know the main audience is going to be children? You're scaring off you're literally scaring away your audience. Parents aren't going to want to watch a movie like that. The only reason they watch it is because their kids want to see it. Video game movies are always pretty much a disaster. The new Mario movie was decent for what it was. I think they tried to make it too normie adjacent, though. The main complaint I had with that movie was having boomer music as the soundtrack instead of, like, actually giving the Mario musicians, like, a chance to be in a big project. Had, like, Van Halen and stuff playing in that movie. It's like, why? You know it would be cheaper to actually have music from the game, right? Even the cartoon from the 80s got that right. It was a decent movie. I don't think it was really great, but definitely better than the 90s one for sure. Sometimes I feel like the Mario movie, the old Mario movie, and the new Power Rangers movie, like, were greenlit by people that don't even know what the source material is. Because I just can't fathom how you get into that situation, spend tens of millions on something, and it doesn't... The main audience doesn't even want to watch it, and doesn't like it, because it's worse than stuff that was out years ago with a fraction of the budget. It's like, who is it for? Especially the Power Rangers movie. It's like, the average person that wants to see a superhero movie is going to watch the 15th Marvel movie that's out this year. They're not going to watch Power Rangers. The core audience for that is almost entirely people my age. Aging millennials that grew up with it. Wasn't the Monster Hunter movie terrible? Isn't the Monster Hunter movie like Isekai with Tony Jaa in it? Yeah, I think the Monster Hunter movie is an Isekai with Tony Jaa in it. Like, why is he there? Alright. Random Tony Jaa appearance. I love Tony Jaa. He's made some of the best modern martial artist movies, but I really think he's out of place in Monster Hunter. Especially because his English is not even that great. Tony Jaa is like the epitome of a martial artist movie actor. Completely carried by his physical capabilities, not his acting. Oh, you're just gonna do this twice in a row, huh? Got wombo comboed. Let's play something else. I'm getting chrono triggered by this game. Let's play something else. You know, the original Final Fantasy movie was like a modern video game and how its marketing worked. It had like nothing to do with actual Final Fantasy, but it was getting a lot of attention just because it had really nice graphics. They talked about how they had to make everyone bald because rendering the hair was too hard for 1999 computers or something, so everybody else was bald. I should tell you, their focus was in the wrong place. You never hear anybody talk about that movie, even though it was like the first Final Fantasy movie. It had like nothing to do with it, and it was basically just a tech demo. And video game movies are almost always terrible. So I'll give the Mario movie that much. At least it was a decent turn your brain off watch. The main problem I had with it was they had like no actual game music in it at all. They went for a boomer soundtrack. It's not like it's bad music. It's just it doesn't fit. And it would have been a good opportunity to have like professional remixes and stuff and like honor the legacy of that music that's been used and is so memorable. But no, they just use a standard action movie soundtrack. It's like, you know, that would have cost more than just getting the actual Mario musicians to just make a soundtrack. And it would have fit like so much better. But yeah, I think that movie was inoffensive. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but considering previous attempts at making video game movies, I thought it was actually pretty good. But they played it too safe. It doesn't really take any risks. I feel like they probably had some kind of focus group where like people didn't like the music or something, so they decided to just put in licensed music instead, which I thought was terrible. But the movie gets 8 out of 10 from me because Mario and Luigi do a double rider kick at the end, and I thought that was the most amazing thing. Like, why does this Mario movie have a Kamen Rider reference? Like in Mario movie had a double rider kick. I'm like, that was the coolest way to finish that movie. Just a random rider kick at the end. I'm like, alright, all is forgiven. You put a rider kick in a mainstream Mario movie. You know, I'll forgive the rest of the problems. That's all it takes to win me over. I'll take your Van Halen, your out of place Van Halen music if, you know, if they do a double rider kick at the end. I think we can reach a compromise. Now, that Final Fantasy movie was stupid. You notice how they don't really try that anymore because Advent Children did insanely well because it was actually a Final Fantasy movie. It wasn't just a glorified tech demo with the Final Fantasy name on it that had almost absolutely nothing to do with it. Crazy how that works, right? I mean, I think they like admitted that they made everybody bald to because they couldn't render the hair. I'm like, then maybe you shouldn't be making this movie. Like, if the tech's not there to do realistic humans in the late 90s, then maybe you shouldn't do that. You know, that's why stuff like Toy Story worked and still holds up, because it was mostly toys. The humans in that movie actually look pretty bad by today's standards, but the toys still look fine. But for some reason they decided to make a movie about photorealistic humans when the tech was not there to actually do it properly.
Ah, 規則だ。
Well, trying to advance stuff when tech is not there is nothing new. That's pretty much what the Vita was. I think the Vita was an amazing console, but they tried to put stuff on it that it couldn't handle. Which was like the main issue. The Vita was a decently powered device in its own right, but they decided to put stuff on it that it couldn't run. And you just get people complaining. Like the Borderlands 2 port is a perfect example. On one hand, it's cool to have Borderlands 2 in the palm of your hand, but when it's a shit port, I mean, is it really worth it? Like, that port was sub 30 FPS, you know, it didn't have button parity, so you had to use that touchscreen on the back, which was terrible for, like, actually playing video games. It had some use outside of gaming, but using it as buttons, you know, there's no physical tactile feedback. Like, the only reason they put out that port is because they thought that it would get normies to buy it, and they did. That's the problem, they did buy it, but they hated it because it was barely usable. They went all in on the Borderlands Vita too. Went like all in on that, and I just couldn't really understand why. It's like this hardware can't handle it, and like by the time that Borderlands 2 came out, Western third-party support had pretty much completely dried up. Like, that was basically the last non-indie game to come out for it. Any Western support past that point was almost entirely indie games. You know, stuff like Dust Force and Meat Boy, those kinds of games, which are like great games in their own right, but they weren't what people were looking for. I just question why they even entertained it, that was a good idea. Like, dude, it can't run this. It's running at like 15 FPS. Like, what's the point? There is no point. Especially with, I think what made it worse was like, the game was pretty big, I think, so you needed a bigger memory card, and the memory cards were insanely expensive and had a high failure rate, so it's like, you know, if you want to play Borderlands on the go in 2013 or whenever that port came out, you're better off just getting a laptop, because a laptop could easily have run the game a lot better. They marketed the Vita as the console experience on the go. I'm like, yeah, you know, if you're... for indie games, and maybe a small subset of larger niche games like Dragon's Crown and stuff, like, Dragon's Crown was actually pretty legit on the Vita. It really only had performance issues when you got to the end game, and most people stopped playing by that point anyway. Odin Sphere as well was also legit on the Vita. But like, most of the console on the go shit was a scam. Not at all indicative of like what actually using that thing was like. Yeah, console experience at the go at like 15 FPS and like 4 less buttons. Cool, I guess. I mean, I guess it's kind of on the go, but it doesn't feel good to play.
全力でかかる風より解かれる力、我が刃と勝て。聖書を歯応え、情けないよ。宿命の風は私が断ち切る。全力でかかってきな。そうね、あいつらをあなたの色。そうね、あいつらを切り裂く。獲物、逃げなさい、逃げなさい。この風より解かれる力、我が刃と勝て。情けないよ。楽しんでくれとするわ。宿命の風は私が断ち切る。その程度の抵抗なのは風より解かれる力、我が刃と勝て。聖書を情けないよ。宿命の風は私が断ち切る。あなたの色、あなたはここへ逃げるの？そうね、あいつらを切り裂く。獲物、逃げなさい、逃げなさい。あなたの色あなたは獲物、逃げなさい、逃げなさい。風より解かれる力、我が刃と勝て。狩りが始まった。宿命の風は私が断ち切る。私について全てを粉々にす
潰すのは
あなたの色好き。うわー、わかった。生きたままにする。
Oh man, just the absolute worst characters. I don't want to do that. Shit characters. I'll pass on doing it this week. I'll help them out with this. I don't want to play as those characters, I'm sorry. I'm that kind of player. Toxic meta player. Got some decent selections here at least. I actually took a break from this for like a week and a half. Just kind of burnt out.
私についてくれるくらいの痛みなんて平気。誰でもいいからかかって天才的なタッチ。
あなたたちの時間は僕が制する。あなたの生存確率はゼロです。時の果てで滅びよ。
私は執行誰でもいいからかかって
I actually really don't watch movies, like, barely ever. I'm not a big movie watcher. The only reason I saw the Mario movie is because it was playing at the Game Center earlier this year. The only reason I watched it. I mean, for free it was decent. I didn't have any interest in paying money to watch it. Kamen Rider, on the other hand, now that experience pissed me off. Not because of the movie itself. What pissed me off about that was that they gaslit us into thinking that it was going to be the only showing, and then they put it on Amazon Prime like 2 months later. And it was insanely expensive for me to go watch that movie. It cost like $60. After like Uber and popcorn and a drink, like 2 Ubers, it was like $50 to watch that movie. They're like, oh, it's on Amazon Prime right now. I'm like, well then why the hell did you do the showing? 'Cause, I mean, let's face it, I don't know what anyone else's experience was watching that movie. There were like 20 people in that theater. Like, it was not the average movie-going experience you get, where you have people reacting to stuff and that's what makes it interesting over just watching it at home. There were like 20 people in that theater. The amount of viewers I get on a good day was like how many people were in that theater. It's not packed at all. I don't understand why they did that. I mean, it was cool to see like an actual tokusatsu movie from Japan in like an American theater. They just put it on Amazon Prime like a month later. I'm like, then what the hell was the point? Straight up gaslit people into going to watch that movie in theaters for a quick buck, and then they just put it on Amazon Prime anyway. Cool, thanks. I didn't need to spend all that money. I just watched it at home. Thanks for nothing. It was still cool to go see it, but I don't like how they straight up lied to people. They did like 2 showings for it, and then they just put it on streaming services. Well, they only put it on Amazon. Must have done like really badly or something. They're trying to make their money back. I'm not sure how much Amazon would pay for something super niche like that, though. Probably not a whole lot of money. Hopefully they made something back. Yeah, that movie was the opposite of Power Rangers. Power Rangers was completely written and produced on the false expectation that they were going to get another movie.
Hi.
The Kamen Rider movie was totally designed around the idea that they were only going to get one. They left it open, but it wasn't like a cliffhanger, which I think was actually a pretty wise choice. The problem with the movie was it was too felt like they were trying to speedrun a movie. That movie is actually like a beat 'em up. It's like a beat 'em up movie. If you ever want to see a beat 'em up in movie form, a lot of people say you can watch like the Raid and stuff, but the Kamen Rider movie is that's exactly what it is. He goes through a bunch of smaller mid bosses until he gets to the final boss, and then the movie ends. It's very strange. I think that's why they're like shooting new footage for that movie, and they're supposed to be like splitting it up into episodes. That movie really did feel like it was just a bunch of like slightly higher production value TV episodes just edited into a movie. You know that Kamen Rider game that was based on the movie? That game is actually a pretty accurate depiction of the movie. Like I remember when I made the overview for that, I'm like, you know, this is actually one of the better movie tie-in games I played, because it actually was very accurate. The main thing that they changed was the ending. I won't spoil that for people who care, but they did change the ending a little bit. But other than that, it was pretty accurate. I'm surprised they haven't made like an actual John Wick game. From what I've seen of those movies, as somebody who like I barely watch any movies, it seems like that would be perfect for a video game, but there just isn't one. I think they put out like a tactics game, which I guess is cool on paper, but I think those movies deserve a little bit more than that. But you could also say the same for The Matrix. The action scenes in The Matrix Well, Matrix is kind of a weird situation because the actual Matrix game sucked, but the Matrix was like a really big inspiration for like gun combat in video games like afterwards. Same thing with Equilibrium. I don't know how many people have actually watched that movie. I don't know if you guys have seen Equilibrium, but like gun kata is heavily inspired from that movie. So like stuff like Noel and Blaze Blue, and I guess later like DMC 3, 4, 5, Dante kind of have a little bit of that as well. That movie is like not very popular, but it's pretty important for like action games. It's a pretty important movie for action games because there's a lot of gun kata style characters that are totally inspired by that movie.
Welcome to the Ace Mind training system.
I'm not really wanting to play co-op right now. Maybe next stream. Sorry, I just kind of want to run solo today. Thanks for understanding. I have a really good reason for that. My main controller has stick drift right now, so I'm on my side chick controller. And if you've watched my last couple streams I've done, you know, I did Atlas Fallen and Dragon is Dead earlier last week. It's prone to disconnecting. I have a different cable and it hasn't disconnected yet, but I don't really think doing co-op or anything where I can't pause is wise right now. I've had a lot of these controllers, and mostly the buttons go bad, but this one's got really bad. The one that I'm not using currently has really bad right stick drift, so it's unusable for 3D games or anything where the right analog stick is used, you know, if like a weapon select or a camera is tied to it. Like, I could use it for this game, but 3D games, the drift is really bad. I don't really have money for a new one right now, which is why I have a lot of spare controllers. I have a spare PS4 controller, I have a Switch Pro controller, and then I have my spare Pro 2, which I'm using. But, this stream is kind of a test drive of sorts to see if this cable is not gonna flip out. Because I kind of felt like playing Atlas Fallen tonight, but at the same time, if the controller's gonna disconnect constantly for the sake of my mental health, I would rather not do that. So yeah, that's where I am right now. Favorite game so far this year? You know what? I'll tab out of the game. I'll humor you, and I'll respond. Give me a sec. I gotta change sources here. Favorite game this year? That's actually a good question. Let's see. What came out this year that I played? I played this year. This was the first Yakuza game that I finished. But this one was a lot more focused. It didn't have as much content. I have a problem with getting overwhelmed with like open world games and stuff. There's just too much to do. I thought this game was really fun, but to be fair, I also played this game with mods. This game's got some anti-fun mechanics, like having a combo limit, which is kind of not fun, but all that's been removed, and there was like a major combat mod, so that's what I played this game with. But yeah, I really enjoyed this game. Apparently there's going to be an update to that combat mod soon, so I'll probably play through that again. What else have I played this year? Megaton Musashi was pretty solid. Just suffered from having no marketing, not sponsoring anyone to play, and then it had a problem with being too multiplayer focused with no players. I shouldn't have to explain why that's a problem, but this game's got Monster Hunter endgame that's like really difficult, and then there's no one playing. They really should just like scale things down more for solo. But I played it for 80 hours. It's not like I completely hated it. The problems with the game mostly stem from expecting players that aren't there, and I mean, how can you expect them to be there when you don't market, you don't advertise, you don't give out review keys. So I can vouch for this because no one I know got a review key for this. I asked for one, I didn't even get a response, and then also somebody else from my channel that's in my community also asked and didn't get one. I don't think they gave out any review keys, no sponsored streams. The end game was like strangely balanced, or like it was balls hard to even remotely get anywhere. Now the last major update they did kind of fixed that, where they added some easier monsters that you could fight that didn't require a bunch of grinding or begging to get carried, but one thing you gotta realize about this game is that the previous version was free to play. So this is kind of like, I don't know if you guys played Mega Man X Dive Offline, but like, this is kind of the same thing. Like, that was originally a free-to-play mobile gacha, but they turned it into an offline game, so they like greatly increased progression and stuff. But like, somehow while they were making the game, they didn't realize, like, wait a minute, the game is really easy, and you can build, like, whatever you want up until you get to the end game, and then, like, very few builds are viable, and it's just impossible to break through unless you beg somebody for help. I kind of got tired of the end game, honestly. Also, boss design was lacking. It felt like the game was designed as a shooter first, and a melee action game second. So there were a lot of problems with like bosses running away and flying and going underground and stuff, and melee actually ended up being good in the end, but like at the beginning it was pretty rough. But the main thing this game has that's an issue is the fact that there's not that many builds that are viable. You kind of got to go with the builds that everyone else is using, and I just found that kind of boring. For a grindy loot game, I'd prefer if most stuff that I can put on is actually viable, but that's definitely not how this game is. Is X-Dive Offline good? Yeah. Yeah, it was really solid. It's also got a lot of mods too, so I recommend this. Virtua Unlimited Project. Excellent game. Definitely one of my games of the year. If you like Mega Man Zero and you can get past the generic anime girl VTubers, which I don't understand why they made the game around VTubers, but if you can look past that, this is one of the best platformers to come out in years. I think it's way better than a lot of the popular stuff. The the controls and the combat are like exactly like Mega Man Zero, which I've always thought is like the best platformer combat and controls and movement. I don't think they really did a really big marketing campaign for this either. I kind of bought this myself, and I was not disappointed. Excellent game. One of the best games I played this year. Astral Ascent was a really good roguelike. I got all the achievements on this, but admittedly mostly because my computer was in the shop for like over a month. Yeah, I played this for like almost 50 hours. Really solid roguelike. Also just got a major update. I'll have to check that out, but this game runs really solid on the Steam Deck, so probably mainly play that when I'm working at my neighbor's house and not at home. What else did I play this year? Atlas Fallen is really solid. I just finished this game a couple days ago. Really good game, and it just got a major update that added a bunch of stuff. There's a new game plus, which I might try later on the stream. What else? That's probably the best stuff I played this year. That's not an older game. It's mostly the new stuff that I played this year. Actually, let me see. Let me check. What else did I play? I might not have them installed. I am on a new install of Windows, so I don't have everything put back on yet. Pocket Bravery was a nice little fighting game. Can't really say much more about it than that. I also played through Tales of Innocence and Hearts R this year, but those are old games I played before, so I don't know if you think those count. But yeah, playing those in 60 FPS with lossless scaling was really fun. The Turtles roguelike on Switch is also really good too. The Turtles roguelike is just crazy buggy, so I don't know if I could really recommend that game. Extremely buggy. I like when people ask me what my games of the year are, because I tend to play a lot of smaller games. Like, yeah, there's a lot of good games still coming out. You just got to be willing to not necessarily step out of your comfort zone, but look for people that are look for people that play like smaller stuff. That's like the main thing you have to do.
マイ夏響きラグナーザノエルバーミリオン
投稿するなら今のうちです。
Actually, didn't this game leave early access this year? Yeah, this game too. I guess it can be considered because it did leave early access this year. This has the best combat out of any roguelike right now, like way better than Hades. Hades pales in comparison to this game. This game doesn't have the story and stuff, but gameplay-wise, nothing is better than this, pretty much. Kind of solved roguelike combat with this. Now, I don't count any existing action games when I rate it like that. I don't count any existing action games that got roguelike modes because that's unfair. There's been a couple of really good action games that have gotten roguelike modes recently, like Wukong, Hi-Fi Rush is another one too. Like, that's kind of unfair because those are like straight action games. For like an actual original roguelike, I definitely think this is the best combat. Pretty much unmatched in how good the combat is. I don't know, the roguelike mode in Wukong would be better if it didn't have, like, fucking fiscal gear load times. That's the thing about that roguelike mode, it actually is pretty fun, and they give you good reasons for doing it, but, like, it takes, like, a full minute to load, like, every map. Apparently somebody went through all 10,000 floors, and I think they said statistically, like, half the time you spend doing it is waiting for it to load. That kind of turned me off right there. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's gonna take hundreds of hours to do that, and like, literally, probably half of it is waiting for it to load. I'm not sure about that. That's pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable. The load times in that game are horrendous. Which is really weird because Neo 2, which came out before it, has like really fast load times on PC and PS5, but like Wukong, regardless of what you're running on, the load times are like incredibly long. I really don't think making a 10,000 floor dungeon with those load times, where it has to load every single level, was not a good idea. It just makes it more obvious how bad the optimization is in that game. I'm sorry, it shouldn't take that long to load a flat room with nothing in it, but you, a couple enemies, and a boss. Like, why does that take so long? It's not even about being impatient at that point. It's mostly just like you're literally sitting through 10,000 load screens. And they're not like short load screens, they're like a minute long. That roguelike mode had potential, but the technical problems with that game really ruined it, in my opinion. I don't know, man, if my load times are that bad and I couldn't pay anybody to like optimize the game and make it load faster, I wouldn't make a mode where you spend more time loading than playing. That's just me. Hey, I'm not a business major. But I just think it's very misguided to do that. Dude, this game takes forever to load anything.
味な戦いは避けたいのですが。
Stranger of Paradise roguelike mode is probably one of the best action roguelikes because you just have so much to grind for and the combat is actually pretty decent. It does still suffer from long load times, but it's not as bad as Wukong. Wukong is some of the worst gameplay to loading ratio I've seen in anything. It's like really bad. It's like, you know, PS1 games didn't do this, right? Back in the PS1 days, they didn't design, like, games solely around constant load screens. They tried to design it around, like, okay, once you load into this instance, you know, you're pretty much just playing, right? Somehow we forgot how to make games like that. Yes, people can be impatient and attention spans are at an all-time low, but I don't know, man. 10,000 floors, and it's loading like 70 seconds. Some of those floors you finish in less time than it takes to load. Yeah, there's a problem there. Wukong is just a weird game, honestly, because it was terrible at launch. They made it a good game over time, but first impressions are everything. I think they really regret dumbing that game down as much because it backfired. I don't know if you guys know, but they nerfed the first boss like twice. And like, was dumbing the game down compared to Neo 2 really worth it when, you know, you had to nerf the first boss like twice? I don't really think dumbing the game down that much really accomplished much of anything in retrospect. That boss was like such a good boss too. Like, it was actually a very well-designed boss. It's like, yeah, it's harder than your usual tutorial first level boss, but it teaches you how to play the game. Like, you can legit beat the rest of the game with a little effort and some practice. But then they nerfed it twice because they were getting so many bad reviews. Like, I don't think dumbing the game down that much really did much of anything. Got the adverse effect. Maybe dumbing it down was the solution. Not doing enough damage. I don't know how you're supposed to do high entropy in this. Seems like the time limit is really limiting because you can't kill stuff quick enough. Well, that was my first time trying 75 entropy. I probably need some better Evo types for that. It's not like it's that hard. It's just annoying. That's why I usually play on like 27. Yeah, the right analog stick drift on my my wired Pro 2 is all messed up. So I can like only use that for like 2D games. I can play like fighting games and platformers on it, but Anything with 3 dimensions is not fun to play. Actually, like, legitimately terrible to play. I'll try Dragon is Dead again. How about that? I'll do one more attempt at this. Yeah, I really wanted to go back to Wukong, but then I saw that statistic screen of how much of it is load times, and I'm like, I don't know, man. And like, you patch the game so much, you can't fix the load times. You're running on the same engine as Neo 2, but it takes like 4 times longer to load. You know, the endgame dungeon in Neo 2 was like 300 floors, but it loaded so quick it didn't matter. If you honestly expect people to play the game that long, you should respect their time with better loading. Imagine playing that game on a lunch break. You probably could do like 5 floors. Play that game on lunch break. Do like 5 floors. If it loaded like Neo 2, you could easily do like double. It's kind of nice to have like essentially endless endgame challenge, but technical aspects ruined it. It's like when they put out Chrono Trigger on PS1, and it had to load the fights, so it like defeated the purpose of playing the game, because the whole thing about that game was supposed to be that there were no load screens or transitions at all. But then you beat a fight and Chrono does his win pose, and then he sits there for like 5 seconds. Like, the game is ruined. like maybe you should have waited until you had another cartridge medium to use, like the DS version, which didn't have that problem. Let's make a PS1 port of this game that is completely invalidated by the load times. What a great idea. There was a really good meme about that on, I think it was YTMND. It was like, just a blank screen, just a frozen GIF of Chrono doing the win pose. And you wouldn't really understand it if you hadn't played it, but it was basically referring to the fact that the load times completely ruined the pacing of the game in every way. That was such a revolutionary thing at the time, too. Actually fighting where you stand instead of transitioning to another area. Obviously, the PlayStation couldn't load that fast, so it didn't work. What's the worst game you guys have played for a gameplay to load time ratio? I already told you mine. But I'm curious. I'm sure somebody's played something worse than Wukong. Wukong just suffers from having a dungeon built around that, but like the levels you go into are pretty short, so it sticks out way worse than other stuff would. There's plenty of games that take a long time to load, but like you're in the level for like 20 minutes or something, so it's more tolerable. Some of those Wukong levels you could finish in like a minute. Oh, I never played that one. That's a Vita game, right? I never played that one. Is that the Vita one, or is that the PSP one? Because I know that there was one... I think the last installment was on the Vita, right? That's one of the few action games I didn't play on the Vita. If that's the one I'm thinking of. Oh, that stings even worse. Yeah, the Vita and the Switch have a lot in common. It's like, yeah, it's cool that you could actually get, like, console quality games on the go, but most of them are really, they run really poor, they take too long to load, or they're buggy. A lot of people don't talk about that as well, like, Switch is actually kind of a low-key crap place to play indie games, because indie games obviously have a lot less access to QA testing than a big game does. So like when they're buggy, they fix it like instantly on console, on like PC. They fix it like instantly on PC, and then it takes months on Switch. That's what happened to River City Girls 2. River City Girls 2 was a disaster. Completely broken Switch version. It took like 6 months or something crazy like that for them to fix it. How was the combat in that game? I've never really seen it. I'd be willing to give it a shot if it's good. But if it's like average, I'm not sure if I care. I kind of exhausted the entire Vita library of action games. I played like almost all of them. I really felt good with leaving the Vita behind. I played like, for the kinds of games I enjoy, I played pretty much everything. Can't really say that for a lot of other libraries. Nah, that sounds like a pass for me then. Thanks for the honesty. I don't think I'd really vibe with that too much. I played pretty much every other action game worth playing on Vita. Underrated console for action games. Actually, I didn't play Phantasy Star Nova. I didn't play that. But the only reason I didn't play that game was because you could only have one account on the Vita. You couldn't account switch. So it wasn't worth doing that for one game. But it had like a lot of patches and stuff from what I remember, so I never played that one. I might check that out on emulator, maybe. That was the worst thing about the Vita, is it had like one of the largest selections of Japan-only games, but then you couldn't, you know, if the game had like substantial DLC, you couldn't get it. Because you'd have to change off your main region accounts, whether you're from Europe or, you know, somewhere else. Like, I imported the Tales games on Vita, but the only thing I missed out on was the DLC, but the DLC in that is just costumes and pay-to-win time savers. Didn't really miss out on anything by importing it. But there were a lot of games that were a lot of games that had substantial DLC, and you just couldn't access them as somebody who didn't live there. Tales games got lucky, pretty much. Those were very import-friendly. Not a lot of reading involved, and then like no content was held back by DLC, so got the whole game. Yeah, the Vita emulator is like years behind the PSP one. Like, I don't know if you guys knew this, but I have a bounty for official true 60 FPS patches for the Vita Tales games, and basically what's happening is that it can't happen until the emulator supports it can't happen until the emulator supports cheats. It doesn't support cheats currently, so it kind of stopped that from happening. Problem with the Vita emulator is the people that are making it are basically catering to Vita kids, or Android kids. They're catering to Android kids, and they're like the most demanding, immature bunch, because they just want to play something decent on their phone. They don't want to spend money. And the problem is that they're trying to juggle two versions, and they don't have the manpower to actually do that. I really think they should have just focused on PC first and, like, gotten that to decent parity with the PSP emulator, and then, like, expand out. But yeah, the updates are very slow. There's a lot of games that are still broken. I know, for instance, Gundam Breaker 3 is like one of the most sought after games to run on that. I mean, a little bit less now that 4 is coming out in like a week, but prior to that announcement a few months ago, that was like one of the biggest games that people wanted to play on it because, you know, it didn't get a PC port of any kind. It also didn't even get a US or English port. The only way that you could get that game in English was to get it from a Southeast Asia copy of the game, you know, physical or digital. And, like, that game is completely broken. It doesn't render textures properly. And it's been like that since the emulator came out. And they just, like, don't seem interested in fixing it. I think they spend their resources in the wrong places. Because, like, the thing about the Vita now as a console is that almost everything worth playing that's not a visual novel has a PC port now. So, there's not much to play on there. There's a couple games, like, you know, one of the big exclusives for Vita emulation that you don't hear people talk about a lot is the Muramasa port, Muramasa Rebirth. That game has, like, double the content of the versions that we got on mainline consoles, but they never ported it off there. Luckily, that works fine, but I don't know. Same thing's going on with the PS4 emulator. Thing is, they're actually putting their resources in the right place, because, like, the main priority of the Vita, the PS4 emulator is getting Bloodborne to work, which makes perfect sense, because that game doesn't have a PC port of any kind. It's probably going to stay exclusive for the foreseeable future. So, like, I don't care about that game. I would have liked to have Gundam Breaker 3 running before 4 came out, but I can understand, like, why they're focusing on Bloodborne, because that has no port in sight. And it's one of the most sought-after games to run at a not garbage frame rate. Like, I totally get it. But Vita 3K emulation is kind of... I don't know. They're trying to do too many things with too few resources. I really feel like the Android version should have waited until they had, like, more features in the emulator. Because you have people that are, you know, wanting the exclusives to run and stuff, and they, like, don't right now. And also, like, not having cheats and stuff prevents English patches, like PowerFlood is saying. Yeah, people don't really realize the Vita, most of the stuff that's relevant has gotten ported elsewhere. There's like a small handful of games that haven't gotten ports. Almost everything else, you know, you can just play it on a Steam Deck with like 10% of the effort. It doesn't take all this effort to optimize it and stuff. You don't have to wait for updates, like you can just go spend a decent amount on a Steam Deck and just have it, you know, already. I do think they're catering to the Android kids a little bit too much with the progression that the Vita emulator is getting. And like, these people are the most demanding, they're just kids pretty much. They're, like, the most demanding. I think you should just like make the emulator better. That's kind of what's happening with Project Nobody May Cry, the DMC mod for Kingdom Hearts. Like, the guy made a big post in his Discord last night about how he doesn't want to support the PS2 version anymore because of both DMCA risks and piracy concerns, safety concerns as well, because people have been, like, putting up the ROM pre-patched, which, you know, if you're making a ROM hack like that in your spare time, you don't want to deal with people saying, like, hey, I downloaded your game and now I've got a virus on my computer. You know? The people were, like, actually very civil. They're like, yeah, just make, like, one last version for PS2 and then, you know, make it on PC, because that basically removes the piracy concern. We're not going to get a cease and desist if it's for the, you know, legally obtainable version, instead of one you can only pirate. Yeah, Vita emulation has a really long way to go. But basically things like true 60 FPS patches and mods like that are going to be a long ways off because it doesn't support cheats yet. So a lot of that stuff is borderline impossible or too difficult. It doesn't support debugging or cheats currently. Yeah, I heard that Vanillaware straight up told them to not port Unicorn Overlord to an actual platform. Which is just, like, batshit insane to me. Like, do you guys just hate money? Like, why do you not want to port? Like, I thought you were a business. Aren't you supposed to, like, want to make money as a business? You have people begging for it. People are port begging like crazy, and they just don't. They don't seem to want to budge on that. I'm surprised Atlas just kind of listens to them. You would think with a publisher they would be like, you know, we don't care what you want to say, we need this on every platform. Especially a small power game like that, which, you know, run perfectly fine on everything. You could even put that game on mobile and, like, charge a lower price for it and probably make some money. But somehow Atlas just doesn't budge. It's very strange to me. The Muramasa Rebirth is actually one of the, probably one of the best reasons to bother with Switch emulation. You know what I say to that, Power Flood? That game was leaked. Unicorn Overlord was leaked on Switch, like, frame 1, so anybody could do that already. There's nothing stopping it. It's like how new KOF sprites would be on the internet while the game was still new, because the emulator could run it, so any kind of prevention they tried didn't matter. Because the Neo Geo was just so outdated at that point that you're... I can vouch for this. My grandma's non-gaming computer could run like Metal Slug perfectly. In like 1998. That's where all those sprite dumps came from, is that. Came from emulator. Oh, nice. Got wombo comboed. What do you mean, stopping PC ports? They never did any PC ports. They haven't done a single one. They've done absolutely 0 PC ports. Although, I can say this, I can vouch for this. Dragon's Crown, Muramasa, and Odin Sphere run perfectly on Steam Deck, so you can say suck it to them for not making an actual port. They work perfectly. I was playing a little bit of Odin Sphere. Playing a little bit of Odin Sphere on Steam Deck, Dragon's Crown as well. Perfect. Vita emulation would be more relevant, I think, for people that aren't Android kids if it had cheats. Like, if we could actually get good mods for the games, I think that would make it worthwhile, because a very significant part of the library has been ported off at this point, meaning that you can get a Steam Deck and run the games better than the Vita, you know, with like an actual native port. A good example of this is Ys 8. I don't know if you guys know this, but Ys 8 was originally a Vita game, which is why it has a metric ass ton of obvious hardware limitations, like all the invisible walls everywhere and stuff. That was originally a Vita game. You've got people complaining that that game doesn't work right or something. I'm like, just go buy it on PC. The Vita port of that game did not get released outside of Japan for a very specific reason. They basically remade the game. When they put the game on PS4 and PC, they essentially remade it. The problem with Ys 8 compared to Ys 9 is that the invisible walls really hurt that game, in my opinion. It's still a great game, but the invisible walls are, like, everywhere. And it's because it was a Vita game, so everything had to be, like, heavily instanced. So it doesn't really feel like you're exploring an island most of the time. Because there's loading zones and invisible walls everywhere. I'm like, I just wouldn't even bother trying to run that on a phone. I'm like, I would just, like, get it on PC, or even Switch version is better. So it's partially the fact that most stuff worth playing has legal ports that you can get elsewhere that run better. And the fact that the features of the emulator are very stunted. They don't really improve that much. Vanillaware will probably end up like Johnny's Associates, the agency for the guy that's in the Judgment games. You know, like the CEO passed away, and then you notice like immediately after he passed away that those games ended up on PC. It was all the CEO preventing that from happening. And then, like, the moment that he passed away and they got somebody else in there, like, frame one, the Judgment ports got announced, like instantly. That's probably what will happen at Vanillaware. Eventually somebody will, like, retire that makes those decisions, and then they'll probably realize, like, if we want to be successful as a business, we need to not stay on console. It's even worse now with portable PCs being so affordable and being able to run, like, the vast majority of games at a playable frame rate. They're missing out on a lot of money. Laptops are nice and all, but they can be very heavy. They're not right for everybody. You know, a Steam Deck or something you can put in your backpack is way more viable for a lot of people, especially people who commute through public transportation. You know, people that use, like, the train or bus or something. You got a lot of time to sit there and play games, and I could tell you from experience, putting a whole ass laptop on your lap on a bus is not comfortable at all. Having a form factor that actually fits in your hands and is not like this whole big thing is actually groundbreaking. But yeah, probably somebody will move on from Vanillaware, and then they'll magically start doing PC ports because they realize that they're missing out on millions of dollars by just ignoring that market entirely. It says a lot that, like, most games have Steam Deck presets now. Like, did you know Blaze Brew Entropy Effect? This game does not have a Switch port, right? I honestly don't know why it doesn't. They would make a lot of money. But there's no Switch port. But what they did do, back when the game, I think, left early access, they actually have a Steam Deck preset, which increases the font so it's easier to read. A lot of games that are worth playing actually have Steam Deck presets now, either for graphics or for legibility, like actually being able to read the text. So it's really stupid that they just don't do that. There was a port for Unicorn Overlord that was being made, but Vanillaware stopped it. I don't even understand how they have that much power. I legit do not understand that at all. I would think that the publisher would say, like, no, you don't have a say on this, because we want to make money off this investment. And PC gaming is bigger than it's ever been because of stuff like Steam Deck. Steam Deck's not the best for AAA games because of poor performance and battery life, but almost everything worthwhile is you can play it on there, and that's big for a lot of people. You know, there's people that only have one computer in their house, and, like, somebody's using it. You know, you can't access your stuff, so Steam Deck is nice. For me, personally, I don't drive, so when I'm on public transportation, I use it a lot. You know, I've got a pretty good computer at home, obviously, but I mostly just use it for stuff that runs well, you know, runs well on the deck and runs well at home.
襲名のラスティル、とこしえの迷宮城。
It's kind of the same thing that's happening with Tails. A Tails situation is really just clown shoes, because like they know that people want it, but they just don't do it. And what makes it worse is they delist all the legal options to play the games. And like, it can't be that hard to port these to PC. I think what's worse about Tails compared to Vanillaware is that they delisted like almost every legacy Tails title with no warning whatsoever. I can understand probably a lot of it is licensing. I think they have to like renegotiate the license with the intro and ending bands, because they're actually sung by real bands. I can get that, but like, if you're going to just delist them, like you can't like at least warn people, like, hey, our license is expiring, buy this now or you're not going to be able to get it again. But no, I remember just waking up and I remember having a bunch of people in Tails Twitter just say like, oh, all the games are gone now. They're just gone. Like, how hard is it to make a tweet? You know, I understand that there's like legality issues and licensing issues, but like, you can't just make a tweet like, hey, these are going to be delisted in a month, and we've discounted them like 80% off. Like, you can buy them now for like nothing, and have a legal copy, and put it on emulator or Steam Deck or whatever you want. How hard is it to do that? But nope, they all got delisted overnight. This complete incompetence and not caring about people who are actually playing their games. It's so stupid. You know what's funny is, like, Capcom, even Capcom did that. Like, they had Marvel Origins and Ultimate Marvel 3. I think those both got delisted at one point. But they warned people. They actually said, like, hey, our license is expiring. You need to buy these right now or you can't get them again. That's fine. I understand, like, you can't negotiate the rights forever, especially for, like, dying consoles where there's not going to be that many more sales, but, like, just inform people. Like, how hard is that, man? Communication is key. Like, come on. None of this, we're just going to delist the game tomorrow. And no warning. This is Rustle, but it like runs really bad, so I'm just giving it a test drive right now. Oh boy, a pink anime. Oh my goodness, it's stuttering. Good old shader compilation stutter, everyone's favorites. Doesn't everybody love shader compilation stutter? Every time you push a button, the game freezes. Greatest thing about modern gaming. Your video game stutters like a parrot. Look at this. Stuttering is so bad. I was honestly shocked when I played the FF16 demo this morning and they actually pre-compiled shaders. I'm like, wow. Finally. Actually providing basic functionality for your PC port instead of making the first playthrough terrible. Because every time it loads something new, it freezes like that. So what's the verdict on Wukong? What are the reviews at right now? Mixed? How bad is the PC port? Is it a unplayable PC port? I was kind of interested in playing it, but I'm kind of waiting for some testimonials from people. If it like actually functions, or if it's crap PC port number 327 of the year. I got no patience for that right now. Not after spending like $900 on a graphics card. Nope. That game better run perfectly, or I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not putting up with that frustration when I've clearly put in the effort to upgrade my rig. That's what's kind of stopped me from playing this game, is the shader compilation stutter. But this is an indie game, so the fact that it doesn't pre-compile at launch is a little bit more forgivable. It's when big games don't do it at launch, so you just kind of think, like, do you want this game to fail? You want it to get mixed reviews on day one? Like, come on, it's not that hard. I was very happy that the FF16 port does not do that. It actually pre-compiles at launch. It still had a little bit of stutter. It still had a little bit of stutter, but not that much. I could tell that the pre-compiling actually helped a lot. Sitting at very positive. That's interesting, because a lot of people were saying the performance was not great. I tried the benchmark. It actually ran pretty decently on my rig. But I mostly just wasn't sold on the gameplay. I need to... Actually, a bunch of people I follow in the action game community are playing it right now, so I need to take a look at their gameplay and maybe I'll decide to get it. It's also kind of skeptical because I was watching a bunch of streams of it before I went live tonight, and like a lot of people could like barely run it. Like their stream was visibly struggling to run a game. So I'm like, I'm not quite sure if I want to bother with that. The benchmark didn't even seem that great because the benchmark is like just a flat area. There's like no enemies or anything, barely. Like, I don't know if this is a really good example of what like actually playing the game will be like, with like crazy set pieces and stuff. It's a little bit skeptical. Like, dude, the DMC4 benchmark was better than that. Have you guys ever done the DMC4 benchmark? That benchmark was actually really legit because it spawns the enemy count from Legendary Dark Knight mode. So there's like 20 enemies on the screen. So it's like an actual good benchmark. I've seen other benchmarks like the Wukong one. I'm like, you have barely anything going on in this benchmark. Is it like an actual accurate representation of what playing the game is like? Because it doesn't seem like it. Crashes are probably from either it's buggy or VRAM usage. Maybe there's like a memory leak or something. I don't know. I haven't played the game. I'm just going off what I've seen. I think the funny thing about the, yeah, the frame rate in this game is pretty rough. The funny thing about the FF16 port is that the cutscenes are pre-rendered, so they're legit no better than the PS5 version. The gameplay runs quite a bit better, at least from my experience. I can't vouch for anyone else, but the cutscenes look so much worse than the gameplay. It's like really bad. It's the opposite of what we grew up with, you know, where they would have like CG cutscenes for like PS1 and PS2 games, and then like the actual gameplay would look way worse. FF16 PC is the polar opposite. The gameplay is so much better than PS5 in like every way, but then the cutscenes are really bad looking because they're pre-rendered. I don't know about this game, man. This performance is really bad. This game is not looking that great. Like, why does it run so bad? Kinda wish I could refund, honestly. Tired of games running like shit on this computer. Unacceptable. Yeah. Screw that game. It's $20 wasted. I don't know how to optimize. Fuck that, man. Spent way too much on this computer to be playing stuff like that that drops frames every time I do anything. Flat room with just like a couple spikes and like 10 monsters. You can't even barely maintain 60 FPS. Fix your game. Fix your game already. They've done so many updates on that, and the optimization is terrible. It seems like it actually would be something I would enjoy, because I like games like that, but not if it's going to run like that. Hard pass. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hop off for now. Go ahead and have a snack and take my meds. I actually was like very tired today, so I don't really feel like doing a full DGen 2 a.m. stream. Also, I kind of want to take a nap because the final Gundam Breaker 4 development stream is in like 3 hours. So, if I'm up and presentable for that, I might restream it. But yeah, I kind of want to be up for that. At least maybe catch some of the VOD. So, I might see you guys in a few hours. Otherwise, I'll be working at my neighbor's house tomorrow night. So, probably the usual Steam Deck stream over there. So, like, Dragon is Dead, Blaze Blue, beat 'em ups and stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm kind of directionless right now because I'm waiting for Gundam to come out. But I might do Atlas Fallen New Game Plus tomorrow. I might start that because I can finish that in a week. But yeah, I'm kind of at a crossroads right now because I don't want to start a new game. Anything that's going to take longer than a week is like not worth playing at the moment because it's just going to get backlogged when Gundam comes out. So, thanks for bearing with me. Streams are going to be pretty directionless for a while. Just kind of be playing random stuff. I think Samurai Warriors 4-2 or not 4-2 but 4DX or Atlas Fallen is probably the next thing I'll probably be doing, because I can get through those in a week. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get some rest, or at least just hydrate and stuff, and I'll see if I want to turn on the stream for the Gundam thing.